Namaskar. Hello, everybody. Namaskar. I hope my students are ready. As I informed you that I would continue the lecture where we left yesterday, we were discussing Tintin Abbey, and we had already studied half of the poem. So I would like to continue with the rest of the poem, but you have to show me like you are there. Has everybody reached? Am I late? I'm sharp. 12. It is 12:02. Okay. Because it is a page within a page, so sometimes comments don't appear exactly the moment you type them. Whatever. So today's class is meant for first of all for the half of the poem Tintin Abbey. Let us finish it first of all. Yeah. Good afternoon, Supriya. Very peculiar and punctual. Punctual, I think. Uh, so yesterday I left the poem where the writer is talking about Wordsworth is talking about River Wye. Now I read the line, and now with gleams of half extinguished thought, with many recognitions dim and faint, and somewhat of a sad perplexity, the picture of the mind revives again. So, yesterday we were discussing that this poem is important because this poem talks about his theory of poetry. That what is the theory of poetry of Wordsworth? Wordsworth's theory of poetry is that first of all, being they consider poet someone special human being who has a power of observation. So that poet has the ability to observe first of all. So he observes, and then whatever he observes ultimately trickles down in his mind, in his subconscious mind. He takes his time, and then those beautiful scenes of nature somewhere talks to the inner self of the poet, and then those things which have hit the inner self of the being, the outer things of nature which have hit the inner things of the poet, these things they write down, and then they become poets. So there is talking about the gleams of half extinguished thought. ग्लीम्स मतलब शाइन, हाफ एक्सटिंग्विश्ड थॉट का मतलब है रामनवमी. हैप्पी रामनवमी. मैं रामनवमी कहना भूल गया. आई थॉट अर्लियर दैट आई वुड स्टार्ट विद राम राम, but I know that there are other students also, but we are all very much secular to the heart. So Meenakshi Yadav, Ram Ram beta. Let us continue. Bhavani Singh ji, good afternoon. I think I should not go into this passing of the exchanging of the pleasantries, and I should continue with the lecture. आपका जो भी नमस्कार होगा, this is I'm accepting that, and आप समझ लेना कि मैं या तो मैं ऐसे करके पढ़ाऊँ कि मैं ऐसे करके पढ़ाता जाऊँ तो आपको लगेगा कि मैं नमस्कार कर रहा हूँ. तो समझ जाना that I am accepting your नमस्कारम. चलिए. So gleams of half extinguished thought. मैं ये लाइन बड़ी सुंदर इसको समझाना चाह रहा हूँ एक्चुअली. ग्लीम्स का मतलब है, देखो, राइटर वांट्स टू कन्वे अ फैक्ट कि हमारा जो दिमाग है, और चाहे वो पोइट का दिमाग है, वो एकदम से इट डज नॉट रिसीव एवरीथिंग, रिसीव्स एवरीथिंग. तो कुछ कुछ चीज़ें हम देखते हैं. और व्हेन आई वाज प्रिपेयरिंग माय लेक्चर आई केम अक्रॉस द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ मेमोरी इनटू द प्रेफेस टू द लिरिकल बैलेट्स, जिसमें राइटर ने बहुत स्ट्रेस किया है मेमोरी के ऊपर. देखिए, एक बात बताइए, अगर आप कॉपी और पेन लेके नहीं बैठे, मान लो सपोज, और आपको मैं जो भी लेक्चर दे रहा हूँ उसको तुम सुन लो, और फिर 2 घंटे बाद तुमसे कहा जाए कि मैंने क्या क्या बताया था, तो आपको नहीं लगता कि आप बहुत सारी चीज़ें भूल जाओगे उसमें से? तो इसका मतलब है कि मेमोरी इज फैलिएबल. फैलिएबल का मतलब होता है एररनेस, त्रुटि होती है हमारी मेमोरी. कोई परफेक्ट मेमोरी नहीं है. मेमोरी चीज़ों को भुला देती है, नेचुरल है ये ऐसी. तो वो कह रहा है कि तो विद ग्लीम्स ऑफ हाफ एक्सटिंग्विश्ड थॉट, वो जो थोड़ी बहुत आधी बुझी हुई जो चिंगारियां हैं विचारों की, विद मैनी रिकग्निशंस डिम एंड फेंट, हल्की हल्की कुछ डिम, कुछ फेंट रिकग्निशंस जो मैं बाद में आती है, एंड समवट ऑफ अ सैड परप्लेक्सिटी। परप्लेक्सिटी का मतलब क्या होता है? कंफ्यूजन। तो और कुछ कुछ इंसान कंफ्यूज हो जाता है कि ये विचार मुझे आया भी था या नहीं आया था। द पिक्चर ऑफ द माइंड रिवाइव्स अगेन। सो दीज 4 लाइन्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, कि पिक्चर ऑफ द माइंड रिवाइव्स अगेन। और उन्हीं चीजों को माइंड जब सोचता है ट्रैंक्विलिटी में, उसके बारे में मनन करता है, तो उसको वो विचार फिर से आते हैं। While here I stand not only with the sense of present pleasure, रिवर वाई के नजदीक खड़ा होकर राइटर कह रहा है कि मुझे केवल प्रेजेंट प्लेजर का ही नॉलेज नहीं हो रहा है, बट विद प्लीजिंग थॉट्स दैट इन दिस मोमेंट देयर इज लाइफ एंड फूड फॉर फ्यूचर ईयर्स। कि आज मैं इस ब्यूटी को देखूंगा नेचर की, तो वो मुझे फ्यूचर में मेरे स्पिरिट के फूड का काम करेगी। फिर वो बोलता है, एंड सो आई डेयर टू होप। ये लाइन बहुत फेमस है बच्चों, डेयर टू होप। आपको पता है होप तो एक नेचुरल चीज है, लेकिन वो कह रहा है कि इच्छा आशा करने की भी मैं हिम्मत कर सकता हूं। दो चेंज्ड नो डाउट फ्रॉम व्हाट आई वाज व्हेन फर्स्ट आई केम अमंग दीज हिल्स, व्हेन लाइक अ रो, ROE, रो एक छोटा सा हिरण होता है जो उछलता है। लाइक रो आई बाउंड ओवर द माउंटेन्स, मैं उछलता फिरता रहता था। इफ वी रीड अबाउट प्रिल्यूड्स, यू नो द लॉन्ग पोएम रिटन बाय वर्ड्सवर्थ, उसने कई जगह एक्सेप्ट किया कि उसने बताया अपने बारे में कि वो बचपन में जैसे गांवों में होते हैं ना छोटे बच्चे, आपने देखा होगा कि शहरों के जो बच्चे होते हैं, दे हैव अ वेरी पेक्यूलियर सेट रूटीन। स्कूल गए, वापस आए, फिर होमवर्क, फिर वो ट्यूशन पे चले गए, और गार्डन में भी है तो वो दे टेल देयर पेरेंट्स लाइक दे आर इन द गार्डन। बट मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम इन विलेजेस, आजकल मेरे को लगता है गाँवों में भी शायद बहुत ही एक स्ट्रिक्ट रूटीन और रिजीम स्टूडेंट्स का बन गया होगा, बच्चों का। लेकिन मैं जब छोटा था और छुट्टियां मनाने जब कभी ननिहाल आता था, राजस्थान में, जम्मू कश्मीर में रहते थे हम, तो मैंने देखा है कि हाँ, हम घर के बाहर कितनी देर तक खेल रहे हैं हमें कोई नहीं पूछता था। तो आई कैन रिकलेक्ट, आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड राइटर क्या कहना चाह रहा है। आप लोग भी समझो कि बच्चा सारे दिन उछल रहा है, और इट्स अ रियल फैक्ट। बहुत देखो, एक बहुत बड़ी गली में हम कहीं भी किसी की भी यहाँ खाना खा लिया करते थे, हमें कोई नहीं टोकता था। तो गांव में सुबह बच्चा निकला और शाम को घर आ रहा है, नोबडी न्यू। तो राइटर कह रहा है कि मैं जब गांव में, ये अपने ननिहाल में पले बड़े थे शुरू में, क्योंकि इनके फादर की डेथ हो गई थी। यू शुड रीड अबाउट द बायोग्राफी ऑफ विलियम वर्ड्सवर्थ। इनके फादर की डेथ हो गई थी। रात को एक बार वो कहीं से आ रहे थे और उनको रात को ठंड में ही बाहर रुकना पड़ा, किसी वजह से रास्ता शायद भटक गए थे, तो बिकॉज ऑफ दिस ब्रोंकाइटिस एंड सीवियर विंटर उनकी डेथ हो गई। तो इनकी मदर के कई बच्चे थे, और इसके बारे में, वर्ड्सवर्थ के बारे में इनकी मदर कहा करती थी कि मुझे इसके बारे में शक है, या तो ये बहुत कुछ करेगा या ये कुछ भी नहीं करेगा, क्योंकि वो घूमते फिरते रहते, उछलते रहते थे सारे दिन घर के बाहर। तो वो ये कह रहे हैं यहाँ पे कि लाइक अ रो आई बाउंडेड ओवर द माउंटेन्स बाय द साइड्स ऑफ द डीप रिवर्स एंड द लोनली स्ट्रीम्स। अब अंदाजा लगाइए, अकेली एकांत नदी है जहाँ पे कोई नहीं है, वहां पे भी राइटर अगर खड़ा है। आई वुड लाइक टू टेल यू दैट वर्ड्सवर्थ जो है, he considers yeah, due to cold he died. Supriya Singh is correcting me. I think I'm also right. मैं क्या बता रहा था कि वर्ड्सवर्थ जो है वो या कल की पोएम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कुमकुम हम, दिस विलियम वर्ड्सवर्थ की टिंटन एबे। हाफ ऑफ द पोएम भी completed yesterday and we are moving with the half of the poem. So I'm not exactly reading very fast. Tintin Abbey, Tintern, Tintin Abbey, Abbey, Tintin Abbey. पूरी पोएम का नाम तो है लाइन composed a few miles above Tintin Abbey. Yesterday I explained the meaning of Tintin Abbey. That Tintin Abbey means a kind of cemetery, एक तरह का ग्रेवयार्ड होता है शहर के बिल्कुल बाहर, जहाँ बहुत ही नेचुरल सीन्स होते हैं। So मैं कुछ बता रहा था, in Wordsworth's life, it is considered that he had a kind of growth of his understanding of nature. कहते हैं कि शुरू में nature attracted him like a mother. In his youth, it attracted him like a beloved. और लास्ट में जाकर के नेचर इसके लिए बन गई एक स्पिरिचुअलिटी वाली नर्स। तो ऐसा कहा जाता है इनको। लामा ऑफ नेचर भी कहा जाता है, प्रीस्ट ऑफ नेचर भी कहा जाता है। So these are the epithets given to Wordsworth. So I am continuing with the line. that like a roe I bounded over the mountains by the sides of the deep rivers and the lonely streams wherever nature led me. अब ये कितनी सुंदर लाइन है कि मुझे जहां जहां नेचर ले जाती मैं वहीं चला जाता। ये बहुत अच्छी और खुशी की बात है कि जैसे साधु लोग, हम इट्स मोस्टली सेजेस से कि हम गृहस्थी में नहीं रहते हैं जो लोग, कि हमको तो जिनको बोलते हैं मलंग बोलते हैं उनको, वो उनको जहां जो उनका मन कहे वहां वो चले जाते हैं। तो ही सेइंग दैट, इसीलिए मैंने मलंग वर्ड यूज किया है। मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स डोंट नो। आप इंटरनेट पे आज गूगल करके देखना हु इज अ मलंग। कई गानों में भी मलंग वर्ड आता है, तो बट वी नेवर पे अटेंशन टू द वोकैबुलरी। उर्दू वोकैबुलरी में भी बहुत कुछ छुपा है, यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड इट। मलंग किसको कहते हैं? एकदम जो परमात्मा से जिसकी लॉ लग जाए, जिसको आसपास की चीजों का होश नहीं रहे। तो लाइक अ मैन फ्लाइंग, लाइक अ मैन फ्लाइंग फ्रॉम समथिंग दैट ही ड्रेड्स, राइटर सेज कि मैं आसपास की चीजों से, वर्ल्डली जो वर्ल्ड है डे टू डे लाइफ का, उससे ऐसे भागता था जैसे उससे डरता हूं। एंड आई यूज टू टेक शेल्टर इन नेचर देन वन हु सॉट द थिंग ही लव्ड। मैं सॉट का मतलब पसंद करना। For nature then the coarser pleasures of my boyish days and their glad animal movement all gone by. The writer, as I told you yesterday, that he's actually in the reminiscence mood, in the mood of, you know, remembering past. He says that what I was 5 years ago, I am not now, that I have a grown up person with more sensibility towards nature, more spirituality of observation for nature then मतलब past में nature मेरे लिए वो नहीं थी। फिर वो ब्रैकेट में लिखता है the coarser pleasure, COARSER, coarser मतलब घटिया, लो लेवल। अब बचपन के प्लेजर क्या होते हैं? पेड़ पे चढ़ जाना, फूल तोड़ लेना, लेकिन फूल की इंपॉर्टेंस पता नहीं है। पहाड़ी देख रहे हैं बट वी डू नॉट नो द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ द हिल। लेकिन वो कह रहा है कि वो मेरे कोर्सर प्लेजर थे बॉयश डेज के, बचपने के, एंड देयर ग्लैड एनिमल मूवमेंट। नाउ ही इज कंपेयरिंग दोज द थिंग्स विच आर रिलेटेड टू द सेंसेस, उनको वो एनिमल मूवमेंट बोल रहा है। ऑल गॉन बाय, वो सब खत्म हो गया। टू मी वॉज ऑल इन ऑल, लेकिन बचपन में मेरे लिए वो ऑल इन ऑल होता था। ऑल इन ऑल एक फ्रेज है इंग्लिश में, उसका मतलब होता है एवरीथिंग। मेरे लिए बचपन में बाहर पहाड़ियों में, जंगलों में घूमना सब कुछ हुआ करता था। आई कैनॉट पेंट वॉट देन आई वॉज। आई साफ साफ समझ में आ रहा है, कह रहा मैं अब नहीं बता सकता कि मैं वो क्या था उस वक्त। द साउंडिंग कैटरैक्ट, ये लाइन एग्जाम में आ रखी है नेट में। साउंडिंग कैटरैक्ट, कैटरैक्ट का मतलब होता है झरने। हॉन्टेड मी लाइक अ पैशन, अभी क्वेश्चन आप लिख सकते हैं। साउंडिंग कैटरैक्ट हॉन्टेड मी लाइक अ पैशन। प्रीता शर्मा पूछ रही हैं, पोएम का नाम है बेटा टिंटन एबे, वर्ड्सवर्थ की पोएम है। आप उसको इंटरनेट पे निकाल भी सकते हो, और नहीं तो उसको लिख लो घर जाकर के, आप उसको समझ लेना। एज यू नो दैट आई थिंक दिस लाइव क्लास कैन बी रीसीन, आई थिंक, यू नो, ऑन योर फोन्स. So there you can see and understand it line by line. Right now it's more important to attend the lecture. The sounding cataract haunted me. Haunted word use कर रहा है। haunt समझते हो? जैसे हॉरर मूवीज में दिखाते हैं ना कि कुछ ऐसी चीजें होती हैं जो आपको हॉन्ट करती है, डर लगता है जिससे। तो बट हियर इट्स द राइटर हैज नॉट यूज्ड द वर्ड हॉन्टेड इन द नेगेटिव वे। वो यहाँ पे कह रहा है कि वो दैट वाज, यू नो, परपैचुअल पैशन विद हिम। हर वक्त उसके दिमाग में वही चीज छाई रहती थी। द टॉल रॉक, अब क्या क्या छाई रहती थी? इज टॉकिंग अबाउट टॉल रॉक, बड़ी सी चट्टान, द माउंटेन, द डीप एंड ग्लूमी वुड। ग्लूमी वुड, यहाँ पे ग्लूमी इज नॉट नेगेटिव। ग्लूमी का मतलब है डार्क, जहां पे रोशनी नहीं आती है, तब उस वर्ड को हम ग्लूमी बोलते हैं इंग्लिश में। देयर कलर्स एंड देयर फॉर्म्स वर देन टू मी एन एपेटाइट। एपेटाइट का मतलब भूख। मुझे भूख लगती थी इन चीजों की, और मैं बार बार उन चीजों में चला जाता। अ फीलिंग एंड अ लव, ये नेचर की जो चीजें हैं वो मुझे एक, इट वॉज माई लव। और लव के बारे में मैं क्या बोलूं? जिसको लव होता है, आपको पता है कि उसको बार बार अपने लवर और बिलवर्ड से मिलने का मन करता है, तो उसको बार बार वहां जाने का मन करता है। दैट हैड नो नीड ऑफ अ रिमोटर चार्म। रिमोट मतलब दूर। मुझे और कोई चीज की जरूरत नहीं थी, किसी और चार्म की। दिस द चार्म ऑफ द नेचर वॉज ऑल इन ऑल फॉर मी। बाय थॉट सप्लाइड और एनी इंटरेस्ट अनबोरोड फ्रॉम द आई। ये लाइन एग्जाम में आई हुई है बच्चों। एनी इंटरेस्ट अनबोरोड फ्रॉम द आई। अनबोरोड का मतलब जो मैंने उधार नहीं लिया है आंख से, है ना? मतलब एनी बाय थॉट सप्लाइड और एनी, मुझे कोई भी चीज को विचार देने की जरूरत नहीं है क्योंकि मुझे वो देखना ही पसंद था। जैसे हम लोगों को बाहर जाकर के घूमना पसंद होता है, कुछ लोगों को घूमना पसंद नहीं होता, दे आर इंट्रोवर्ट। वो क्या करते हैं, जैसे मैंने बचपन से बहुत ट्रैवलिंग की है क्योंकि माय फादर वाज इन ट्रांसफरेबल जॉब, तो पंजाब, यूपी, एमपी, जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, तो हम काफ़ी ट्रैवल किया हुआ है। तो अब मुझे ट्रैवलिंग पसंद नहीं है। मुझे कोई कहता है कि भाई हम पहाड़ों में घूम के आए, तो मैं कोई बहुत इंप्रेस नहीं होता हूँ क्योंकि मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि अब मैं तो ना जाऊँ, मैं तो घर में बैठा रहूँ। तो राइटर क्या कह रहा है कि अब मुझे उसकी ज़रूरत नहीं है क्योंकि मैं वो सब चीज़ें देख चुका हूँ और उस वक्त वो मुझे ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट लगती थी, अब नहीं लगती, ऐसे कह रहा है। Were then to me an appetite, a feeling and a love that had no need of a remoter charm by thought supplied or any interest unborrowed from the eye। ये पैसेज स्टैंजा अपने आप में इंपॉर्टेंट है। That time is past, कह रहा है वो समय अब बीत गया। And all its aching joys एक फ्रेज है, फेमस है, ऑक्सीमोरन है कि नहीं बताओ, पहले आंसर दो। aching joy is an oxymoron or not? जिसको ऑक्सीमोरन नहीं पता, मैं ऐसे ही पढ़ा रहा हूं जैसे क्लास में पढ़ाता हूं। ऑक्सीमोरन का मतलब टू ऑपोजिट थिंग्स आर प्लेस्ड टुगेदर। एकिंग मीन्स पेन एंड जॉय मीन्स हैप्पीनेस, तो हाउ कैन इट बी टुगेदर? लेकिन राइटर ने उसको साथ साथ रखा है ये समझाने के लिए। ऑल इट्स एकिंग जॉयज आर नाउ नो मोर। एकिंग जॉय का मतलब कि किसी चीज को देख करके आंसू आ जाए, किसी चीज को देख करके और अंदर से एक एग्जिस्टेंशियल एंग्स्ट, एक स्पिरिचुअल फीलिंग आए। पता है ना, कभी कभी हमें खूब बहुत लोग जिनसे हम प्यार करते हैं या रोना भी आता है, हंसी भी आ रही है, खुशी भी हो रही है, लेकिन रोना भी आ रहा है। सो आई थिंक ही वॉन्ट्स टू एक्सप्रेस दिस फीलिंग थ्रू दिस फ्रेज, एकिंग जॉयज आर नो मोर। अब मुझे वो सब नहीं लगता है। एंड ऑल इट्स डिजी रैप्चर्स, ये लाइन भी फेमस है। डिजी मतलब चक्कर आना, गोल गोल घूमना, रैप्चर्स मतलब हैप्पीनेस। ओहो, बहुत आनंद आ रहा था नेचर के अंदर, ऐसा। नॉट फॉर दिस फेंट आई, इन चीजों के लिए अब मैं फेंट नहीं हो गया हूं। ऐसा नहीं है कि मुझे अब ये चीजें अट्रैक्ट नहीं करती हैं। नॉर मोन नॉर मरमर, ना ही मैं उदास होता हूं, दुख मनाता हूं, और ना ही मैं कुछ मरमरिंग करता हूं इस चीज को लेके, मन में फुसफुसाता हूं, विस्पर करता हूं कि ये मैंने क्या खो दिया। अदर गिफ्ट्स हैव फॉलोड, क्योंकि दूसरी गिफ्ट्स आ गई हैं लाइफ में। बचपन में तो केवल छोटी छोटी चीजें नेचर की देखना वो मुझे अच्छी लगती थी। अब नेचर में अब मुझे कुछ नए गिफ्ट्स मिल गए हैं जिनको मैं अब फॉलो करता हूं। फॉर सच लॉस, जो चीजें बचपन की थी वो खो गई हैं, नई चीजें मिल गई हैं। आई वुड बिलीव एबंडेंट रिकम्पेंस, बहुत सुंदर लाइन है, लेकिन नेचर ने जो कंपनसेशन मुझे दिया है वो बहुत ज्यादा है। मतलब वट एवर आई यूज टू praise and love in nature when I was a child, Amitabh sir is saying this cruelty of the surgeon's knife। A very nice phrase। सर मैं ठीक पढ़ा रहा हूँ क्या द्विवेदी सर? I'm bilingual because of the demand of the students। That time is past and all its aching joys are now no more, and all its dizzy raptures। Not for this faint eye, nor mourn, nor murmur, often gifts have followed। For such a loss, I would believe abundant recompense। तो आई थिंक ये बात आपको समझ में आ गई होगी कि नेचर ने मुझे कंपनसेट कर दिया है। फॉर आई हैव लर्नड टू लुक ऑन नेचर, अब मैंने सीख लिया है नेचर की ओर देखना। नॉट एज इन द आवर ऑफ थॉटलेस यूथ, दिस इज ऑल्सो अ वेरी गुड फ्रेज, थॉटलेस यूथ। अंदाजा लगाइए, अब तो मैं नहीं कह सकता कि आज की जो यूथ है वो थॉटलेस है, लेकिन आपने जरूर सुना होगा कभी ना कभी, योर पेरेंट्स मस्ट बी टॉकिंग अबाउट समटाइम्स कि थैंक यू सर, योर पेरेंट्स मस्ट बी टॉकिंग। जैसे मैं तो अपने पापा को, अपने ससुर जी को सुनता हूँ कहते हुए, कई बार वो कहते हैं कि यार हमें इतनी टेंशन नहीं हुआ करती थी, हम तो बड़ा मतलब लाइटली चीज़ों को लिया करते थे। तो बट यू नो आज के स्टूडेंट को, छोटे से बच्चे को ही टेंशन शुरू हो जाती है, तो कॉन्शियस तो है ही वो चीज़ों को लेकर। लेकिन राइटर ऐसे कह रहा है कि थॉटलेस यूथ की तरह नहीं हूं मैं, मतलब ऐसी यूथ जिसको किसी चीज़ के बारे में कोई ख्याल ही नहीं है, मस्त, जिसको अभी जो वर्ड बोला था मलंग। मतलब ओवरऑल नेचर जो पोएम का है उसको आप समझने की कोशिश कीजिए कि राइटर इज टॉकिंग अबाउट द डिफरेंस ही हैज अचीव्ड being a sensitive person in these 5 years, in the elapse of the 5 years, उसकी वो बात समझा रहा है हमें. Abundant recompense में कहाँ चला गया देखो, अभी बहुत सुंदर लाइन आने वाली है. Of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still sad music of humanity. This line is very famous in whole literature. और अब मुझे क्या सुनाई देता है, द स्टिल सैड म्यूजिक ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी इज वेरी वेरी एग्जिस्टेंशियल. बच्चों बहुत फिलोसॉफिकल है वो इस वक्त. सैड म्यूजिक ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी मतलब धीरे धीरे राइटर को ये रियलाइज हो रहा है, जैसे टॉमस ग्रे की जो पोएम है ना, एटन कॉलेज वाली, अगर आपने पढ़ी हो किसी ने, उसके अंदर राइटर एक जगह लिखता है कि इंसान जब बच्चा होता है तो वो खेलता है, कूदता है, पढ़ाई करता है, पर उससे ये नहीं मालूम कि धीरे धीरे वो कैसी मुसीबतों का मतलब यहाँ पे है द एग्जिस्टेंशियल कंडीशंस, एग्जिस्टेंशियल एंग्स्ट और जो फीलिंग्स है स्पिरिचुअलिटी की, या कि मैं क्या हूँ, मैं कौन हूँ, ये फीलिंग्स तो बहुत बाद में आती है, किसी किसी को पहले आ जाती हैं. लेकिन ओवरऑल जैसे आज है, मुझे लगता है कि बहुत से लोग, मैं खुद भी एक्सरसाइज करने की वीडियो बना के अपलोड कर रहा हूँ, अपनी वाइफ के साथ फोटो खिंचा के अपलोड कर रहा हूँ. हम हैप्पी हैं, क्या रहे छुट्टियां मिली हुई हैं, लेकिन आप सबको मालूम है इस घर की चार दीवारी के अंदर हम सब कहीं ना कहीं टू द कोर ऑफ आवर हार्ट्स हम बहुत डरे हुए हैं. मैं अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन मैं लिंक कर रहा हूँ कि कहीं ना कहीं हम सब, वी आर ऑल ह्यूमन बींग्स आर एंड वी हैव द सेम काइंड्स ऑफ फीलिंग्स. मुझे लगता है हम सब बहुत डरे हुए हैं. हमें पता है कि एक बहुत बड़ी समस्या इस वक्त हमारे सामने है कोरोना के रूप में. और तो एक बात बताइए कि अगर ये प्रॉब्लम नहीं भी हो तो भी एक इंसान जो सोचने वाला इंसान बनता है, द थिंकिंग ह्यूमन बीइंग होते हैं, उनको अल्टीमेटली दे स्टार्ट फीलिंग कि मैं कौन हूं, मेरा क्या होगा, मेरा पर्पस क्या है इस धरती पर आने का, मैं मतलब समथिंग ही स्टार्ट्स थिंकिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ फिलॉसफी. तो राइटर कह रहा है कि अब जाके मुझे ये ऑब्जर्वेशन का हायर लेवल मेरे अंदर आया है जिसमें आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड दिस स्टिल सैड म्यूजिक ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी. और उसको उसने एक अच्छा रिकम्पेंस कहा है. उसने कहा है कि वो जो बॉयिश प्लेजर्स थे बाहर नेचर को अटेंड करने के, उनसे ज्यादा बेटर मुझे अब लग रहा है कि मैं इन सब चीजों को, जो गहराई है इंसानियत की, इंसान की जो स्पिरिचुअलिटी है कि उसका क्या पर्पस है, उसको मैं महसूस कर पा रहा हूं. नॉट हार्श नॉर ग्रेटिंग दो ऑफ एम्पल पावर. ही इज ऑल्सो डिनाइंग कि कोई, आई एम नॉट पासिंग थ्रू वेरी टफ सर्कमस्टेंसेज. वो कह रहा है इतना हार्श नहीं है ये म्यूजिक, मेटाफोरिकली बात कर रहा है. नॉर ग्रेटिंग मतलब काटने की आवाज, घिसने की आवाज टाइप. दो ऑफ एम्पल पावर टू चेस्टन एंड सबड्यू. लेकिन ये इस म्यूजिक में एक पावर है कि वो मुझे चेस्ट कर देगी अंदर से. यहाँ पे चेस्ट वर्ड राइटर ने इसलिए यूज किया है. चेस्ट वर्ड की एटिमोलॉजी थोड़ी अलग है. someone who is a pure untouched virgin. लेकिन chasten, that adjective has been used as a participle here. I mean verb की तरह en लगा के यूज कर लिया राइटर ने. और वो ये कहना चाह रहा है कि एक बात बताइए, आपको सबको लगता है कि जैसे ही हमारा लॉकडाउन खत्म होगा, हमें लगेगा कि नाउ वी आर सेफ टू मूव आउट, और ऑफिशियली भी जब ये हट जाएगा, आपको नहीं लगता वी वुड बी बिट बेटर ह्यूमन बींग्स बी कमिंग आउट ऑफ आवर डोर्स? मुझे लगता है ऐसा कि हम काफी हद तक मेरे घर के बगल में कुछ किराएदार रहते हैं. मैंने अभी अपने आप ही छत पे जब टहल रहा था तो उनको आगे होकर के पूछा कि आपको कोई किसी चीज की जरूरत तो नहीं है. जिन पड़ोसियों को मैंने दूध लाने के लिए जाते देखा और वो खाली हाथ आ रहे थे कि मैं दूध नहीं है, तो मैंने अपनी वाइफ को कहा कि इनको कह दो कि हमारे पास एक्स्ट्रा मिल्क है, अगर चाहो तो आप ले लो. मतलब कि ऑटोमेटिकली वी बिकम बेटर ह्यूमन बींग्स. तो राइटर ऐसे कहना चाह रहा है कि इस में एक ताकत है, इस ग्रोथ ऑफ जो मेरे अंदर जो ग्रोथ हुई है, अब उसमें एक पावर है जिसने मुझे थोड़ा सा सबड्यू कर दिया. अब सबड्यू करने का मतलब नेगेटिव होता है. सबड्यू मतलब झुका लेना, कंट्रोल कर लेना. तो कंट्रोल करने का मतलब यहां पर नेगेटिव नहीं है. कंट्रोल करने का मतलब है कि जैसे हम सब धीरे धीरे मैच्योर हो जाते हैं और अब हम उतना नहीं हंसते, हम बड़ा बहुत लाइटली चीज़ों को देख रहे हैं, ऐसे ऐसे कर रहे हैं. मतलब अब हम उन चीज़ों से उतना अफेक्ट नहीं होते जो चीज़ें हमें बचपन में या यूथ में बहुत ज़्यादा अफेक्ट कर दिया करती थी. So somewhere the nature has given the poet a kind of power of observation, and through this power of observation उसने शायद ये अंडरस्टैंड करना सीख लिया है कि लाइफ एक बहुत मीनिंगफुल चीज़ है, सोल कुछ बहुत ऊंची चीज़ है. एंड आई हैव फेल्ट अ प्रेजेंस दैट डिस्टर्ब्स मी, और मुझे अब इस नेचर में एक प्रेजेंस नजर आती है जो मुझे डिस्टर्ब करती है विद द जॉय ऑफ एलिवेटेड थॉट्स. मेरे अंदर एक हाइटेंड काइंड ऑफ जॉयज और विचार आते हैं. प्रभु सीबी. Okay, Prabhu. I would like to speak only English because of the demand of the students. I'm a bit bilingual, but I will be trying myself level best to be in. You don't understand Hindi, I think. Okay, no problem. And I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts. Elevated means high kind of joys. Now I experience, writer says, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused. Sublime sense. In some of my other lectures too, or in the series of this romanticism, I think I had explained earlier that what is the exact meaning of sublimity. Sublimity means heightened sense, which there are two exact meanings. One meaning of sublime is something, a feeling of terror. Another meaning is something which is high, which captures our attention. So he says that these things of nature have somewhere made me that kind of human being that thoughtfully I can see at them, I can look at them, and then these things have the power to make me more to look more into more deeper. Whose dwelling is the light of setting suns, and the round ocean and the living air. So in some of my other lectures, I was also explaining, I think in yesterday's lecture itself, that try to feel air, the wind, not air, sorry, the wind. You will, if you are very casual about nature, you will never feel that wind has a life of its own. If you remember in Hindu Shastras, we say Pavan Devta, I think we call Pavan Devta Varun Devta, Maruti Nandan. We have some these things of nature, because this poet Wordsworth has at many places has considered that he would be a pagan. It would be better for him to be a pagan. Pagan and pantheism are two aspects which are related to Greek poetry, where, because mostly Christians don't have gods and goddesses, and they also don't believe in idol worship. But this poet says, when he loves nature and he understands that something is there in nature which is animated, divine, which talks to you, which has some communion with you, from within, then he feels at times that oh, had it been better for me to be a pagan, a person who would suckled in the creed outworn, in one of the sonnets he has said. So what he wants to convey here, that this living air, this round ocean, these setting suns and the blue sky, and in the mind of man a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. These are the most important lines. These are most important lines of this whole poem, where he has taken, I think, enumerating all the things around him, and then he says that I would like to read this line again. And in the mind of man a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. I would like to dwell here on these lines. Let me try my level best to explain that. Don't you think that in Hinduism, in paganism, it is said that everything is conscious, nothing is unconscious, inconscious or insentient. In everything there is God. Yesterday I talked about God particle also. You must have had this knowledge of Narsimha avatar. It means everywhere there is a presence of divinity. And the writer says that somewhere I have got the sense now that when I look at nature now, I feel that it is not, insentient or something which is, क्या बोलते हैं, we have a word for that, inanimate or non-living. Actually, it is living and uh, rolls, and this divinity, this presence rolls through all things. Everywhere I find that something is there which is communing with me. Therefore am I still a lover of meadows. And because of that, now there comes, a very a typical point in the poem where now he says that what I was 5 years ago, and with this elation of the 5 years, I'm here right now. And earlier I used to love but without thought, and now I still love these things because now I have realized that there is a presence of divinity in these things of nature. इसीलिए वो, that's why he says now, therefore am I still a lover of meadows and woods. ये कोई क्वेश्चन मार्क नहीं है, आपको मालूम है, you know that, we put a helping verb or a main verb, before the because inversion is there. I want to say that there is an inversion. Therefore I am. He's not saying therefore I am. He's saying therefore am I. It means he wants to stress here, because when we want to give stress, we alter, we do some inversion of verbs and all. These things are to be noticed, in Wordsworth at many places. Therefore am I still a lover of meadows and woods. Meadows means the grasslands around, and mountains, and of all that we behold. Behold means to see. From this green earth, of all the mighty world of eye and ear. They had asked a question many years back in net, that who is the poet of eye and ear. So you should write this line in your notebooks, that he says that of all the mighty world of eye and ear, whatever our senses gather from all this sentient world outside, which most of the people considers inanimate. Therefore okay, Mr. Malty says that first line again. Therefore, from here, therefore am I still a lover of meadows and the woods. That is why I am still the lover of these meadows and mountains, and of all that we behold from this green earth, of all the mighty world of eye and ear, both what they half create and what perceive. Beautiful line. These things of nature, they half create things in front of us. I think the writer is somewhere, there is an irony, inherent irony, what he wants to convey here, because on one hand he says that the things of the world, which we can see, they have their own power, and somewhere they are creating me a sense that the things are captured, or say I have a manifestation. Manifestation ka matlab darshan. I have darshan of divinity, but this darshan, this manifestation is only half, because only perceptions are unable to gather completely what they can, because that divinity is far beyond the comprehension of the perceptions and the senses of human beings. इसीलिए वो, that's why he says, from this green earth, I'm rereading the line, of all the mighty world of eye and ear, both what they half create and what perceive, well pleased to recognize in nature and the language of sense. So this sense, this, Kumkum, you are right. We behold from this green earth of all the mighty world of eye and ear, both what they half create and what perceive. Our senses perceive only limited things from nature. I can't say that most of you are able to understand it, and I can also say that you are able to understand because you are intelligent, in the sense that it is said that, okay, I would like to give an analogy here, एक example देके समझाऊंगा. आपको लगता है कि an ant, an ant can have a super consciousness? Can't. but a bigger animal can have, a bit higher consciousness. A dog will have a bit higher consciousness, an elephant. So in the, in the whole hierarchy and the chain of beings, human being is considered to be, the highest one. But again, it is said that his understanding is also very, very limited. We cannot understand, understand many times, for example, we cannot see in the dark, but dog can see. So it is all the matter of perception, which is, man is not endowed with the, super consciousness level. So he is somewhere, talking about the limitation of that perception power. Well pleasing to recognize in nature and the language of senses, the anchor of my purest thoughts, the nurse, the guide. Most famous lines again. This nature is the anchor of purest thought. Anchor mean to say, anchor का मतलब होता है somewhere where you stand, someone stands, and or something, which hooks you to something. So he says that the anchor of my purest thoughts, the nurse, the guide, the guardian of my heart and soul of all my moral being. All my moral being. Being does not mean this physical being. My moral being inside, that moral being, my guardian of my heart. Hello, it's a very great phrase. Heart. You do something wrong, your heart will automatically stop you. It will say something, you are doing something wrong. It means heart. It touches this nature, this divinity in the nature is somewhere. Fatima ji is asking me, ma'am, we are reading Tinton Abbey. We are at the end of this poem, Tinton Abbey, written by William Wordsworth. So, in nature and language of the senses, the anchor of my purest thoughts, the nurse. Nature is the nurse, the guide. Who is the nurse? Nurse. Nurse means, in English they have a word nurse, but I would go up to the extent of taking the meaning of this word, from my understanding, reader response theory. आपको मालूम है what is the feel of the word Yashoda? One who brought up. केवल क्या उन्होंने Yashoda, the mother of Lord Krishna, is considered to be, the nursing mother, one who brought up Krishna, not the birth giving mother. So nurse means someone who not only take cares of you, one who feeds you, one who is spiritually, emotionally one with you. So this nature is my nurse. It brings me up, it takes care of me, it guides me. It's guardian of my heart. It guides me, guardian. It has custody over my heart and soul of all my moral being. Moral being, is considered to be a man, and its soul is this nature, or this guiding principle in the nature, or this divinity in the nature, in nature. Next he says, nor perchance if I were not thus taught, should I the more suffer my genial spirits to decay. He says that okay, I think Mr. Lone, he is simply using personification here. Earlier he used oxymoron there, I discussed it. And because, he has talked about all these inanimate things as animate. So he's talking about simply personifying. And the anchor of my purest thoughts, the nurse, the guide, the guardian of my heart and soul of all my moral being. Up to my best of my knowledge, this is, the device he's using. But I would say that William Wordsworth is the one who is not very much in the habit of using devices, poetic devices, because he has a theory of writing poetry that one should use very less number of metaphors, though he himself has contradicted many times himself. And he has also used poetic diction many times, though he is against poetic diction. But still, thank you very much for reminding me that it would be better for me as a teacher to discuss the devices also. Thank you. Nor perchance, if I were not thus taught. Writer is simply imagining that if I were not taught, if my training was not of this sort when I was a child, should I the more suffer my genial spirits to decay? Then my genial spirit. Genial is a very favorite word of romantic writers. He says that my genial spirits would go awry. My genial spirits will, decade mean to say, destruct. For thou art with me here upon the banks. Now he's talking about his sister Dorothy Wordsworth. He says that here upon the banks of this fair river, thou art with me, thou my dearest friend, my dear, dear friend, and in thy voice I catch the language of my former heart, and read my former pleasures in the shooting lights of thy wild eyes. Now, wild eyes is again, eyes are not wild actually. So transferred epithet is used here, but I think this is not a very good use of literary device here, but simply the writer is praising his sister for that childlike curiosity about nature. Now there is a contrast in the poem, that what he was 5 years ago, he's seeing, he's witnessing that the same thing is present in his sister right now with his shining eyes. Wild eyes here means shining eyes, and with calling his sister dear. Yet a little while may I behold in thee what I was once. He's asking permission of his sister, that can I look into your eyes to see what I was once, my dear, dear sister. And this prayer I make, knowing that nature never did betray the heart that loved her. You should write this line. This has also appeared in exam. I reread it. Yet a little while may I behold. Behold means to look. In thee what I was once, my dear, dear sister. And this prayer I make, knowing that, यहाँ से आप लोग लिख सकते हो, you can write from here, knowing that nature never did betray the heart that loved her. It means, very simple line to understand, that if you love nature, nature never betrays you. If you, I can link it. Look at, you all have heard that ozone layer is in the healing process because of this whole shutdown, lockdown, and there is no pollution around. Yesterday night I saw very clear sky. I could teach my daughter which star is one, and so what the nature is doing, nature is we betrayed nature, so nature betrayed. And now if suppose we limit capitalistic and industrialized world, mad behind the pursuits of wealth, gain. Suppose it happens, suppose, or even in Delhi. Have you ever been to Delhi? Many of you must. The traffic hell of Delhi. I think it is in every city the same condition these days. I used to live in Chandigarh, I think say 16 or 2020, and I had a seminar last year, and I went there with the perception that I would witness the same kind of city, and I was at loss. I think when I saw it was again the same kind of traffic jam over there. So we betray nature in many senses, but if we don't betray nature, nature will recompense us and will give more. So I reread this line. Knowing that nature never did betray the heart that loved her, 'tis her privilege through all the years of this our life to lead from joy to joy, for she can so inform the mind that is within us. She is used here for nature. It means the nature has throughout the poem been personified. She can so inform the mind that is within us, so impressed with quietness and beauty. I think again you all can understand this. Quietness. If there is no noise of traffic, even human beings also. I can hear a sparrow outside my window. Quietness we can feel, then beauty, and so feed with lofty thoughts. Again, this is a word, the phrase you come across in Wordsworth again and again. Lofty means high thoughts, that neither evil tongues, rash judgments. We cannot judge nature with our evil tongues, mean to say with bad language, nor the sneers of selfish men. I would like to go in the depth of the life of, explain these particular lines, that writer's brother's death had really changed his perspective at the industrialized world. Uh, his brother was associated with stock exchange there, and he committed suicide. I think you can read it. Might be you can find fault with my knowledge, because whatever I right now remember, I'm so sneers of selfish man. Don't you think like man is selfish? Man simply thinks about himself. When I was constructing my house 11 years ago, I had to cut big trees, from the plot, and then there were so many ant hills, in that plot, small plot of 200 square feet, and I was very very sad. And then I realized that we Hindus perform a yajna, after building the house, and there we beg pardon from all these lesser animals and insects and all, that we have encroached your place. I hope you understand my point. And Seven Lamps of Architecture is a book written by a Victorian critic. नाम याद नहीं आ रहा है अचानक से. If you can help me out. नहीं. Man is selfish by nature. Hobbes has said that, but I'm talking. I'm trying to recall this book. What is its name? Seven Lamps of Architecture, written by a very famous sage critic of Victorian age. Forget. अभी नाम याद आ जाएगा. So that writer has said that when you build your house, even that should be according to nature. You should not go against nature in anything. So you can see at the Jainism. You can see to different things even in Hinduism. When we pluck a leaf of beetle, tulsi, we have a tradition, we have a very strict tradition, that if we break it, if we pluck it, we say that tulsi ma aapko bhagwan bula rahe hain. And then there are restrictions, like on a particular day you cannot pluck the leaf, beetle leaf. It means it's all less religious and more scientific, I think, where they consider that nature is a sentient being, nature is something living. And there he says, I would come back to the phrase sneers. Sneers is actually a word very tough to explain with a particular translation or a synonym. So I just sneer is like this kind of face. Sneering. Sneer of selfish man meant to say he keeps sneering at nature, and just keep thinking about himself. Nor greeting where no kindness is, nor all the dreary intercourse of daily life. This is also a very famous phrase. I reread the line. Nor greetings where no kindness is, nor all the dreary intercourse of daily life. Dreary means something. Seven Lamps of Architecture by I was asking the name of the writer actually. Yeah, it's Seven Lamps of Architecture by there is a writer, that one who has written about देखो कभी कभी दिमाग से निकल जाता है. I'm sorry for that. Come back. Sneers of the Selfish Man, the Dreary Intercourse. John Ruskin. Yes, Kajal. John Ruskin. You should write John Ruskin. You should. This is today's homework. Write down all his major works, and you will come across that. Yes, I was right when I talked about this writer when I was explaining this poem. I come back. Dreary intercourse of daily life is again the humdrum of day-to-day life, which is dreary. The writer says that it is dreary. It is horrible. रोज कमाने जाओ, daily go to work, and then लोगों के साथ में अलग अलग तरह से deal करो. Sometimes you have to compromise with your honesty. So that's why writer says that the dreary intercourse of daily life shall ever prevail against us or disturb our cheerful faith. These are less important lines. I'm just reading through. Our cheerful faith that all which we behold is full of blessings. therefore let the moon shine on thee in thy solitary walk. And then he's giving some blessings to his sister. Okay, everything has some blessings in the world, in this nature. So moon shall on thee in thy solitary walk. Now what kind of blessings are these? We mostly say that God bless you, you should have a long life. But he says that let the moon shine on thee in thy solitary walk. And now it's a very beautiful blessing. हम किसी को कहें कि ऐसी ही शांति रहे तेरे घर में, ऐसे ही तेरे घर के आसपास कोई ट्रैफिक नहीं आए, तुझे बाहर नहीं जाना पड़े. So in it's a hidden blessing actually, that what a man wants, like he does not want like he should be disturbing around the world for his worldly gains. So joking apart, the writer is talking about like nature should be with you, and therefore let the moon shine on thee in thy solitary walk, and let the misty mountains winds be free to blow against thee. Misty winds जो हैं mountain, misty mountains mean to say mountains with snow where misty winds blow. They should blow on thee in after years, when these wild ecstasies shall be matured into a sober pleasure. This is again a famous line. Wild ecstasy. Ecstasies mean to say a very euphoric kind of joy, where we are so hilarious, very jocundity is in us. We are very, very elated, jumping and all. So he says the wild ecstasies shall be matured into a sober pleasure. So there is a contrast, like wild ecstasies are contrasted here with sober pleasure. And he says that, just a minute, battery is running low. Yeah, sorry, and thank you. Misty mountains, ecstasies shall be matured into a sober pleasure. Sober pleasure means to say unaffected pleasure. I would like to explain the word sober. Sober is mostly used by students I've come across when they say is a very sober person. Sober is exact opposite of drunk. So someone who is drunk means affected, having very unfounded ideas. And if someone is sober and is very cool, calm, very unaffected ideas, suppose his ambitions are in his control and he is too much aware about his limitations and all. So he says that these wild ecstasies of yours, is praying and wishing for his sister, that they will turn into sober pleasure, when thy mind shall be a mansion for all lovely forms. Mansion means house. Your mind will be a house of all the lovely forms, means you would also be able to write, or you thy memory be as a dwelling place for all sweet sounds and harmonies. Oh, then if solitude or fear or pain or grief should be thy portion, once you have learnt it from nature, then you will be an equanimous person. That is why he says that then solitude will not affect you, fear would not affect you, pain would not affect you, grief would not affect you. You will consider that these are the portions of a human life. Then he says, with what healing thoughts of tender joy wilt thou remember me, and then you will remember me. And these my exhortations, exhortations mean to say kind of angry teachings to someone. Then he says that you will be able to recall my exhortations, nor perchance if I should be where I no more can hear thy voice. Ho sakta hai, it may be possible that we would be so much apart that I won't be able to listen to you, nor catch from thy wild eyes these glimpses of past existence. Wilt thou then forget that on banks of this delightful is a word in English. I have seen this word more in novels, that wilt thou then forget that on the banks of this delightful stream. They can ask you this question, that what stream is talking about. It's talking about the river Wye, W-Y-E. We stood together. He says that a moment will come in your life, then you will remember that we stand together on this river, or on the bank of this river. and that I so long a worshipper of nature. Second time it has come that again he is calling himself the worshipper of nature. Hither came unwearied in that service. Again, service is a word used in the sense of worship. In church, when they go and they bow down in the praise of God, they call it service. So they say that unwearied in that service, I used to worship nature without and without ever being without ever feeling tired. Rather say with warmer love. Oh, with far deeper zeal of holier love. You would remember that you would come to know, he's saying to his sister that that love for nature was a warmer love, more than the worship of or the service in the church. Nor wilt thou then you will never forget that after many wanderings, many years of absence, these steep woods and lofty cliffs and this green pastoral landscape were to me more dear for both for themselves and for thy sake. This is the last line of this poem, where he simply says, you can read it at home after the lecture finishes, and you can understand, if the major idea is with you, you can understand that what the writer is conveying. So that is about Tintern Abbey. I would like to say all those to all those who are watching me right now that for better understanding of all these kind of explanations, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can type English for Net JRF by Mukesh Parikh. You should subscribe it. You should press the bell icon. Yesterday I got a message from somebody. It is there on the YouTube that the content is very good and you should deserve more subscribers. But then I was wondering, like, why don't I have subscribers? So you people can help me out by helping yourself. You can go to my YouTube channel. It is English for Net JRF, NET Net, capital NET, capital JRF by Mukesh Parikh, PAREEK. And you should subscribe it. You should press the bell icon. Now I'm not finishing this lecture. I'm still live, very much live. Now I'm talking. I would be talking, as I wrote the message, that I would be talking about preface to lyrical ballads. So let us do one thing. Today I should start this preface to lyrical ballads, and then we would finish it tomorrow. Now, how should I proceed towards? First of all, I would like to share with you some important information that why and for with how many things the romantic writers were. Before I start or say, I think I would discuss ballads tomorrow. I am reading the background romantic writers. That what was in the mind of yesterday or in some other lecture of mine. I was talking about that some political, some social, some religious things and happenings around us, they make a creative writer think in a different manner, and then his creativity starts. So they trigger, these circumstances trigger his or her creativity. So I'm going to collect it from somewhere, background to the romantic, reading it out, and I would be explaining it out to you, and keep giving me this so that I can understand that you are there, because I can see only very limited number of students there. Are you there? All of you are there? Should I start? Historians of English literature have designated the period from 1798 to 1832 as the Romantic period. Wordsworth and Coleridge published lyrical ballads in 1798. Sir Walter Scott died in 1832. Now, this is the reason that some people say that, some people say that when Queen Elizabeth, was enthroned, that period, the beginning of the Victorian age, was the end of Romantic age. Some people have some other perceptions. So, but I would say that this is not the exact thing actually. Yesterday also I said, and to my new viewers, I would like to again, say something, that a romantic period is also called romantic revival. Romantic revival. Why? Because it is said that, when Shakespeare was there, Shakespeare was writing, it was also a kind of romantic age. And in between, when Alexander Pope, Milton, your Swift, and your Addison, your Dr. Johnson, these writers, they followed classical writers. So that particular age, in between, is called the neoclassical age. So before that, as you all know, that Milton is called the last poet of Renaissance. So that whole age of Renaissance, is considered to be the poetry of romantic poetry. We are in the habit of giving some nomenclature, to poets. When we read a particular writer, we say that, okay. But I would like to ask you, don't you think that metaphysical writers are also romantically, inclined, or they are romantically motivated, because their ideas are not practical. So anyone who is not practical is called romantic. So a romantic period is also called romantic revival. This I talked yesterday also. But today, what I'm talking about, that there are certain books actually, which had a great impact on these writers, and certain things happened. So I'm simply reading through that. Reform bill, which also the reform bill, which extended the right to vote to the middle class and laborers, were passed by Parliament in 1832. During this period, England moved from a primarily agricultural to a modern industrialized society. Thus, the balance of power passed on from the land-owning aristocracy to the owners of industrial units, which employed large numbers of people. The mill owners and their employees had developed different perspectives. In the political arena, there were revolutions of far-reaching consequences to England. The American Revolution led to the Declaration of Independence in 1776 by the 13 colonies. The French Revolution was a shattering and sundering event which affected the whole of Western Europe in several ways. The French Revolution received enthusiastic support in the beginning from the liberals and radicals in England. The Declaration of the Rights of Man by the French National Assembly was welcomed. Edmund Burke, in one of my other lectures in this live series of lectures, I talked about Edmund Burke when I was talking about Sublime, the theory of sublime and beautiful. So Edmund Burke disapproved the events in France in his book. You should write down this name of this book. It's very important from your examination point of view. Reflection on the Revolution in France. You are right, Fatima ji, when you say that there is a dissociation of sensibility, Eliot, in metaphysical pursuits. You're right. But what I'm saying, I try to understand what I am conveying. I am not exactly teaching from the phrases point of view. That is, the understanding of Eliot. There he is talking about something else. I would like to digress, friends. I would like to answer Fatima that T.S. Eliot in Metaphysical Poets, he has used 2-3 phrases which I think these examiners keep asking us in all the exams. He talks about unification of sensibility and dissociation of sensibility, and he says that after Milton, because Milton was more prone to use poetic diction and he was unable to feel what he was writing, so there was a discord, a break from sensibility. That Fatima ji says, I'm not talking about that. I am talking about that what is romanticism. Romantically inclined people have actually, in our colleges and universities, suppose we don't understand the lecture by reading good books and by asking teachers questions. Somewhere common perception of a student when you talk about romantic literature, he or she simply be answering that a person who writes about nature. But we have to teach them that is it is not possible, because all the classical writers also wrote about nature. So this is not the only criterion of all the romantic writers, that they talked about nature or they wrote about nature. There are so many factors, because I think you have joined us today only. You just listen to the other lectures of mine, you will be able to understand. You should go to my YouTube channel, Mukesh, English for Net GRF by Mukesh Parekh, and you have a video. I have uploaded a video on romanticism. Just read all these things over there, and you can discuss it here also with me. I come back. I would like to say romanticism has certain qualities. First of all, let us understand the word romantic. Romantic word means someone who is impractical, someone who is living in an idealized world. Okay, one who talks about something which is not there, but somewhere in his mind, in his imagination, which is more suitable to his persona, his subjective self. So one who is living in past either, or somewhere who wants to talk about something which is mostly neglected by the common man. So these qualities are considered to be the romantic qualities. Okay, and what you are talking about are simply a kind of association and dissociation of sensibility. That is something else. Okay, so here I'm talking about I was reading the names of certain books. Actually, the Declaration of the Rights of Man, sorry, Edmund Burke disapproved the events in France in his reflection on the revolution in France. Okay, this is another important book. Ankit Chaudhary ji ka swagat hai. Tom Paine, another important writer. Tom Paine, it's homework to all of you now. You should go and throughout the day search about the books of Edmund Burke and his contribution to romanticism. You can type this as such, and you will find there are different sites. And don't read thoroughly, just read for some minutes, and try to get the idea that what Edmund Burke has to contribute from his side. Tom Paine, उनकी एक बुक है kind of essay, Common Sense. I was badly in search of that book somewhere, and one day I found it in a bookstall, and that was, I think, throughout the day I was so happy. So Tom Paine is again a very, very a writer, I think, whose books are mostly found in all the educated people's cupboards. Tom Paine used a spirited rejoinder to Burke in his Rights of Man. This is again in our NET exam. They have not been asking us the in-depth knowledge of these books. They are simply asking us either the names of the books, the writers, and their dates of publication. But now I'm a bit scared, because they have toughened the level of this exam, so they may ask you the in-depth detail also. So you should just go on internet, just read about book like what is the, आप उसकी बुक के अंदर जाकर के देखने की बजाय जो उसकी जो 10 जैकेट होती है ना, बुक जैसे मान लीजिए किसी, सपोज ऑन एनी साइट दे हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट द बुक, दैट व्हाट इज द मेजर कंटेंट ऑफ द बुक. इफ यू रीड दैट आल्सो, दैट वुड बी suitable for you by now. Tom Paine used a spirited rejoinder to Burke in his Rights 91-92. Tom Paine by peaceful or violent means. Another book, Inquiry Concerning Political Justice, 1793 में book publish हुई थी. I reread the name of the book, Inquiry Concerning Political Justice. This book is written by William Godwin, made a great impact on words